Continue live from T-Mobile Park. It's Wyman and Bob with Charlie Furbush in for Dave Wyman, and joining us here in the booth is the one, the only skipper of your Seattle Mariners, Dan Wilson. How are you, man?
Good, guys. How are you doing?
It's great to see you.
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here, and spring training really starting to knock on the door here. So
let's go.
Heading down there next week. So it's getting close.
How different was this offseason? I mean, you've been working with the team for years, working the minor leagues, working with catchers, different roles, but this is a completely different offseason for you. So was there even an offseason, or did you, as soon as the season ended, you're working, or did you get some time off? How different was it?
Yeah, it is a lot different than what I had been doing previously in the organization, and it's a lot different even than being a player. As a player, things are kind of on your own at that point once the season ends. But as a manager, there's things that need to be done. We had to a few staff changes, rearranging a little bit on that end, so that took some time certainly, and then just getting around, trying to see as many players as you can, have conversations with them in the offseason, a different perspective, and was able to do some of that. Winter meetings, which was a first for me. That was something that was on the schedule as well. So yeah, it's been quite busy, and in a baseball life, and Charlie, I know this is true. Once the holidays are over, it's like spring training is right there, and so here we are, about a week away from heading down there, and really excited to get this thing started.
For sure. I'm excited too. I was so thrilled last year when you got the gig and you took over, and I'm sure you're as excited this year to get things started. And what is one thing this off season that you've learned so much about the guys? I know you said you visited a few guys. Anything that you've learned you've uncovered so far?
Yeah, I think I think the guys, and this is the one thing that has really been shown through even in the last 30 days of last season that we were able to come in, and these guys are really excited. They are really wanting to get to that postseason, and there's a strong desire to get there. There's a strong desire to raise their standards and do what it takes to get there, and all that starts in a week and a half or so, and that's what's exciting about spring training is getting started on that long journey, and it is a long journey, and spring training is the first step. That's where you get prepared. That's where you start putting together physically and mentally what you need to do to start making those steps towards that postseason run, and I think everybody at this time, when you're in the game of baseball, is ready to get started with that.
How much did last year help you get prepared for this year? I mean, you got thrown right into the thick of it, 34 games. I mean, there's no time to adjust. It's like, go, Dan, get it happening, and Edgar was part of that, obviously. But how much were you scrambling? I mean, did you feel like you were scrambling, or was it comfortable? And how much does that help you going into this season?
Yeah, I mean, I think drinking from a fire hose comes to mind at close range. It was certainly a lot right away, and I was obviously grateful for the opportunity and ready to go at it. But even as a player, you're around it. You just don't understand what it entails when you're in that role, and so it was a lot early on, and I think that my first call was Edgar. You mentioned Edgar, just so grateful and thankful that he was able to jump on board as well at the end of the year, and then again this year taking on a role to direct the offense. I think what he was able to accomplish, and just his presence, the way he delivers his message, the message that he brought to our hitters was awesome, and really sunk in quickly, and adding the couple pieces that we did here in the offseason with Kevin Seitzer and Bobby Magianis coming over from Atlanta. It's a great mix with Edgar. It's very similar in approach and philosophy. So it's exciting to see what's happening there, and I think it did prepare us for getting here, and I learned a lot in that first 30 days. There's still a ton to learn. I did get a little bit of a chance, as we talked about before, to step back just a little in the offseason, but it's all going to start up here again, and I just continue to learn, and hopefully we'll take those lessons and have a great product on the field.
How does that work with Edgar and Seitzer? I mean, is Edgar in charge of everything? Does the buck stop with him? Are they splitting duties, or what? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gar's the leading voice, and Seitz is there obviously as the major league hitting coach, and again, the way we've seen these guys work together here in the off season, and we've had a lot of meetings and we've talked a lot about philosophy, and you can't have two guys that are more aligned than Gar and Seitz, and I think having that presence, both these guys having been in that box and having done it successfully, I think it goes a long way as well. So it's going to be exciting to see where this offense goes, and I know they're excited to get cranked up, and I think we're looking at it on more than just a hitting front too. I think what we were able to do on the bases, we've got a lot of great speed, just putting pressure on the defense and making them handle the ball, play catch, and bring the game to them, so to speak, is really what our offense is going to be trying to do, and it's exciting. I think it's a great brand of baseball to watch.
For sure. I think the offense is a big topic, as you know. The Mariners maybe have underperformed from time to time, but once you took over last year, really, really got to see a sense of urgency. It felt like, getting the job done, moving the runner over, really not missing pitches you should miss. How have you created that urgency? How is that, from a player standpoint? I know what it feels like when a manager, hitting coaches come in and create urgency to feel like you need to win and every game is important. How have you done that so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think Gar was a big factor in that, and just bringing his message and just allowing guys a little bit of freedom in the box. I think it's more of a mindset than it is, a mechanical change. It's more of a, when you step in the box, here's what we should be thinking. Here's what we need to be looking for from the pitchers that we're facing. It's more from a philosophy lens, and Gar really brings that. I think, Gar has an incredible outlook on hitting. A lot of times good players who were good hitters, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be a good hitting coach, but Gar was a Hall of Fame hitter, but he studied hitting. He was a student of hitting, and so he can take that knowledge and the way he approached hitting, and he's able to relay that to other guys. And I think having the success that they had helped them to buy into it pretty quickly. And I think we can't go talking about this without also talking about Justin Turner and the ability and the leadership that he brought as well. Another sort of older voice in that offense at the time. But he was able to add a lot as well. So getting those veteran voices in there was huge, and I think that really, really helped the guys take to it quickly.
How do you – I think we look at pro athletes and making millions of dollars, and you almost feel like they're impenetrable, that they don't lose confidence. Confidence is always there. But at times you can see it when somebody's uncertain in the box, that they're in between. How do you get the confidence back for guys that are coming off rough years? I mean, let's be honest, both Mitches, it was a rough year for both those guys, and it was a step back year for JP. How do you get them back to where they're not overanalyzing and maybe they're not pressing and gripping that bat too tight? How tough? Because you have to kind of be a counselor as well as a manager.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and again, when you got a guy like Gar who's going to be leading that department, you're in good hands. I think a lot of times, as hitters, when we lose confidence, we begin to look internally, and we start thinking about mechanics. We start thinking about where our hands should be, where our feet should be, what our head should be doing, which is perhaps the last thing we should be thinking about. And I think that's the benefit that Gar brings, is he can work more in the mind space and what your mindset should be as you step into a box, and that helps really get you in the right place, and it gets you in a position to compete no matter what your confidence level is at. So that's the beauty of what Gar brings, and really looking forward to it, and getting these guys a chance to hear it right away. And I think with Edgar, it's not just the message that he brings, but it's with the humility that he brings it, the way he delivers his message, he makes it very, very simple. And anytime we can make a very complicated game like baseball simple, I think we're in a good place.
Nice. So who excites you going into this year? I know the roster, hasn't made a ton of changes, but like Bob said, we looking at some players that maybe had some down years. We're excited to see them turn it around, but maybe someone that catches your eye that you think that can have a big year for us this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, on the new guy front, Carlos or Donovan Solano is a guy that I think is a very interesting player. Again, a guy that's maybe a little bit older, but brings that veteran presence. He's been in a playoff situation here 3 out of the last 4 years, so he's seen that postseason baseball, what it takes, and can relay that. From all accounts that we hear, great in the clubhouse and works to really mentor young players. And so that's going to be a great presence in our clubhouse for sure, and on the field as well. Swings the bat really well, has hit 270, 280 his whole career. Even in a game where the average has gone down, he has really done a great job. So getting him, I think, will be really, really nice for us. Dylan Moore coming off that Gold Glove season as a utility guy, really look for a great season from him as well, and kind of responding to that. And some of the guys you mentioned that are really putting in the work this offseason, that are looking to get things right this year. And as a player, you sometimes you need that incentive, and having that extra incentive really takes you a long way. And getting a couple of those guys, seeing what they've done this offseason, I know we're going to see that pay off as the season gets started. And when you start breaking it down, like, the whole thing is exciting. And I think that's the best part about thinking about what's ahead for us and what's on the forefront for us. There's a lot of exciting things that a lot of people can get behind.
When you talk about bringing in players from the outside, Solano being the one that's been brought in so far, what's your role in that? Does Jerry come to you and say, hey, we're looking at so-and-so, what do you think? Or can you go to him and say, hey, man, we don't have a third baseman currently. I kind of like this guy who's available. Or what's that dynamic like when you're talking about filling holes out there?
Yeah, we certainly have conversations, no doubt about it, and understanding who's available, what's out there, what are the options that we have, where can we go with this guy, all those kinds of things, and we are. In conversations about that a lot, and being around here, being local in Seattle, it kind of helps, and get a chance to talk with them frequently. So, I think we're all on the same page, and looking forward to, making our team better wherever we can, and looking forward to, getting these guys together. I mean, that's my focus at the moment, is getting these guys together and getting started on that work. To get us to that final step in the postseason, and it's a beautiful journey that is going to get started here pretty quick.
How do you, looking at the infield right now, I'm looking at it from the outside, going, okay, I don't know who your third baseman is, and it looks like maybe it's a platoon at second between Bliss and Moore, and maybe Solano and Rayleigh at first. I mean, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty to the infield. How do you feel about it? Are you in agreement that, hey, we need to make some more moves here, or how are you feeling about things?
I think we are looking at everything. There's no doubt. And as I mentioned, we're always looking to get better. And I think this has been a kind of an odd, season in terms of free agents. There's still a lot of guys that are still out there. A lot of question marks throughout the league, really, as to who's available and what's happening. So I think as we get closer to spring training, I would anticipate there would be something that could happen. So again, it's kind of a wait and see thing. But for me, the focus is getting the guys that we have and getting them on the field and get them ready for what's ahead.
So you played for Lou Pinella. Oh yeah, good old Lou. I'm sure you learned a ton from him as a player. What can you share with us, maybe from a manager standpoint, that you've learned, or maybe you're taking into this year that you learned from him when you played?
Yeah, great question. Obviously, Lou he's one of the goats of managing, and having a chance to play for him was a great thrill of mine in my career. He was difficult, no doubt. He was tough on catchers, especially young ones. So I had to go through some growing pains for sure. But I think that the one thing that really stuck out about Lou was that you had to bring your A game every day. That's the respect that he had. He expected that out of you every single day. And even if you had 80% because you were hurt or you were injured, he expected a whole 100% out of that 80% and made you get that. He got the best out of you every single day. And I hope that's something that I can live out as well. And he's a guy that wanted to win more than anybody else in that ballpark, and it really showed through. And I think that really, made us pick up our game to a certain level. And so it's certainly something as you stand down there at the rail, you start to hear managers in the back of your head, and he's certainly that leading voice and one that was tremendous in my career. I think about Bob Melvin as well, who's still managing in the game, and he spent a couple years here in Seattle. I think, his ability to communicate with players. I remember when he came over, He was a catcher. I was like, oh my goodness, this is wonderful. Finally, a manager that's a catcher, just a great communicator. And so, you sort of take some things from all the guys that you had and all the coaches that you had, and hopefully you put it all together, and it's a sort of a successful stew.
How much are you tuned into what's being said? The feeling from the fan base, from the media, from the outside, because you're into this unique position. And I was telling Charlie before, I'm like, man, I love this opportunity for Dan, and talking about how you are always our go-to guy back in the day when it would be a tough game. We'd talk to Dan, and now we're in a position where I'm like, man, I don't want to be in a position to criticize Dan. I love Dan. And so you're in this unique position where you're on a pedestal for Seattle fans. They revere you, but now you're in this new position where maybe you're going to get criticized by the fans or the media. I don't know how much you hear it or pay attention to it, but is that a weird change for you?
It is. I mean, I think I think it'd be a whole lot different if you hadn't gone through it as a player, and I think certainly that's all part of it. And when this opportunity was brought to me, I thought, you're stepping back into that arena, and it's full of criticism, and that's part of the deal, and that's something you have to live with. I think you can't let it occupy that much space in your mind. You have a job to do, and I've never been one to keep my antenna up to hear all the criticism. Try to keep it as focused as possible, and to me, it's about the coaching staff, it's about the guys, it's about our group here in Seattle, our organization, and we try to get the best that you can out of those guys on a daily basis. And that's the thing about baseball. It's 162 games, and getting guys to bring their best at 7:00 at night. That's your goal as a manager. That's your goal as a coaching staff, and hopefully we can continue to do that.
Is there an urgency with this rotation? Because that's the other part we've talked about, which is on the positive side. Certainly, a 1 through 5 like this has never existed in this organization. I mean, you could make the case that they're all 1s and 2s. We've had great pitchers, Randy, obviously Felix, Charlie Furbush, the greats of the organization.
Absolutely.
But a 1 through 5 like this, and they're young, and in baseball dollars, they're cheap, they're inexpensive right now. So do you feel that urgency of, we got to capitalize on this while we have this intact right now, because all those guys are going to get expensive, and the idea that they're all going to be able to stay in the same spot, maybe not realistic. So is there hey, we got to strike while the iron is hot?
I mean, I love our pitching group. There's no doubt about it. And anytime you pencil in one of these 5 guys, you got a chance to win that game that night. And they've shown that over the course, over the last couple of years. And it is a dominant pitching staff. You love them. I don't know if that's the urgency as it is more than just wanting to see the Mariners again in that postseason, getting to a World Series here in Seattle. I mean, that to me is where the urgency lies, and wanting to bring that and hopefully have a part in bringing that to Seattle. That's where the urgency is, and this is a game where players do come and go. That's just the reality of it. But to me, the urgency is getting a team out there that can do that. And we haven't done it in a couple of years now, and I think we need to get back to that postseason where we belong. And so that's where I'm drawing the urgency from, for sure.
Speaking of pitching, I kind of want a quick health update, because I know 2 years ago, Matt Brash came in out of the bullpen and was lights out. Arguably, Munoz are better. How's he recovering? I assume he's on the mend and we're going to be ready for spring training?
Yeah, Matt has, was a big part of our bullpen a couple of years ago, missed all last year, and by all accounts is on track for where he should be. Not 100% to know exactly when that's going to be, but we do hope sometime, by midseason we'll definitely see Matt, and I know he is anxious to get rolling. It is a long process. It would be good to get down to spring training, get a chance to see him and see how his progression is going. And he can be a big part of that bullpen for sure. And Gregory Santos, the guy coming back from an injury last year as well, another big arm down there in that bullpen. So really a lot of potential down there that is exciting. And again, getting down there, getting our engine running a little bit and getting a chance to see these guys off the mound is going to be an exciting time.
Hey, you've hit here, obviously. What is your opinion of the batter's eye? It seemed like when Teoscar made the comments about, I felt like it was kind of cockeyed from the pitcher, that just took on a whole life, and that just became a fact. It's a problem. I'd never heard any other hitters say anything about it before. What is your is it odd to you? Does it not line up? I know when I was being managed by you in the softball tournaments, I was cranking them here. It was not a problem for me, Charlie. I was crushing. But no, in all seriousness, is that anything you've heard before? And do you look at it and go, well, yeah, I understand what he's saying?
There have been things with the batter's eye over the years. I don't, as a player, there were things that when we first moved in here, I know that we talked about, and a lot of those things had been corrected. The angle is certainly something that people have talked about. Not having stood in a batter's box in a really long time, Bob, it's hard to know for sure if that's something that bothers you. But again, I think, I think that as we get into this season and we start playing the type of baseball that we play, which is, fighting when we have 2 strikes, it's moving runners, it's doing the little things. We're going to be in a good spot, and I don't think that'll be a problem.
Have you tutored any of the hitters? As I've told you, you got one of the best right-handed swings I've ever seen. You ever seen him swing?
Of course.
Usually we talk about lefties. Oh, what a beautiful, graceful swing. He had that as a right-hander, which seems rare.
Can't teach it.
That's a compliment, Bob. I
tell you that all the time.
I know. and to be fair, you did rake in the softball game.
Yeah, that's right. It was the manager. It was all the
right.
the instruction come from the manager. Dan, awesome to catch up with you. Really appreciate you coming in and excited for this season and first full season under your watchful eye and obviously wishing you nothing but the best. Thanks so much, man.
Guys, I appreciate it and look forward to it.
Big things coming.
There you go. Mariners skipper Dan Wilson with us.